Hello and welcome to Virtue and Virtuosity. And today I'm joined by a regular podcast guest, Marianne Callahan. And also I'm joined by Avril Chester, who's the CTO at the Royal Pharmaceutical Society, but is also a bit of a serial entrepreneur within the charity sector. She's done a variety of things, including being the founder of Cancer Central and worked in a few other charities. And also I spotted today is also now the patron of a charity, which is fantastic to hear. Avril, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I know, hot off the press news. Isn't that exciting?
It is. It is. So, before we go into anything else, can you just tell us just very briefly what that is as your new role as a patron?
Thank you. It sounds so grown up, doesn't it? So yes, thank you. Hi, patron of your SimPal, and what a phenomenal charity it is. It's very small but really impactful. And basically, it's the only charity in the UK that donates 6 months free SIM cards and phones for those people who are impacted by ill health and cancer. Because we all know digital poverty is a real thing, and obviously with financial worlds and squeeze on finances right now is getting really, really difficult. And when you go through ill health, how do you stay in contact with your consultants at hospitals and information and friends and family? And this is a practical support for that. So it's a real privilege to help raise awareness of this charity so we can give more practical support to those that are going through treatments.
I like that, Avril. That's a really interesting cause, which I didn't know much about. And whenever I hear about charities filling niches that are so valuable, it makes you realize that there's this huge ecosystem across the UK and across the world, which really pulls together nicely there. And Mary, it's really good to have you back again. And you're now working for a different charity, doing something else interesting there, I understand.
Hi, Stuart. Oh, thanks for having me back. Yes, so I've recently joined the Motor Neuron Disease Association as their interim chief technology officer, which is really exciting. They've given me such a great welcome, and it's such an important cause. I've been learning so much about the community of people who are living with and affected by motor neuron disease, and really been impressed by the connections that we have with them and the growing sense of energy and determination to help people with the condition and those who are affected by it, because it is a very difficult condition to be diagnosed with. And really, we want to make sure that we're helping everybody with that condition to live every day and make every day matter. So yeah, very exciting, very different, but yeah, I'm excited to see what we're going to be able to do there.
That sounds really good. And it struck me now that on this call, between the three of us, there's it's got to be getting close to 10 different organizations that we've done senior roles in. So a lot of experience on this call. And as soon as I mentioned to Mary that I was interviewing Avril, Mary straight away said, "Oh, please can I be the co-host on this one? Because I think it's going to be a really exciting call." And Avril, I've known you for quite a while. We also did a podcast in the past. You kind of introduced me. You got
We
me into
did,
it.
we did. And it's so exciting to talk to Mary too. I think we're going to have a real giggle today.
Yeah. So I guess maybe a good place to start is to talk a little bit about what we've seen in terms of how our charities are making decisions, because this is what's at the heart of so many. Is my almost my mantra I've been talking about quite a lot, is that good decision making can lead to good technologies, and that good decision making at the senior level within a charity is one of the most valuable things you can get to. And so I guess the place I'd like to start is Avril. Have you, within your organizations you've worked for, have you had any experiences of good or bad decision making and how it's impacted on your technology developments?
I'm very happy to talk about the Royal Pharmaceutical Society, to be honest with you. I am super impressed with them and their bravery. And I think the word brave is sometimes used a bit flippantly, but when you need to make some key decisions, it's taking that big leak and a big risk. So in the Royal Pharmaceutical Society, there's kind of two parts to the organization. There's the knowledge business, which is wonderful medicine information that is created and consumed within healthcare, NHS, and the globe. And also then you've got the professional leadership body, which is the membership side of things for pharmacists and pharmaceutical scientists. And there's kind of two things going on, because obviously there's two approaches. One, we're building a new data platform really to house this medicines information, because the way we consume stuff now needs to be in machine readable format, needs to be there and then when we talk about clinical decision support. But of course, over the years, like anything, it was human readable. It's a publishing house. We've got books, we've got different CMSs, we've got stuff everywhere. And of course, it's spaghetti. And you've got this mammoth data and engineering and content and product sort of glue together to create and move forward. And whilst it's obviously not one of the largest places we're sort of talking about, but it's not obviously the smallest place either. Putting investment behind this is serious, because what I basically asked for is, could we stop producing new products for a period of time? And I know we need that for revenue, and I know we need that for growth to keep us going. But until we stop, and until we just get this thing done, get this project done, we're not going to move the needle, and we're going to drown. And for them to listen and to stop, obviously we've got to continue the growth, but I mean, lots of new products at the same time, but just basically put all the attention, all the resource, all the focus of just getting it over the line so we could then get to the world we want to be in. That's brave. Secondly, in terms of the membership body side of things, they've been hanging on. I mean, like a lot of sort of charitable side of things, disparate systems, little bit of investment, things are broken. And actually, I've asked them to be patient with me, because what we needed to do is to sort of pause and understand the bigger picture. And what's happening during this timing is our assessment of ourselves. I mean, the landscape of healthcare is changing. So actually, us as an organization, we've seen sort of in the sort of recent few months, we've announced our ambitions to become a Royal College, which includes becoming a charity with a limited subsidiary. It includes changing a Royal Charter, all this. And when we go back to that leadership decisions, all this is really important, because the technology delivers the how. And if we understand the what and who we are in terms of delivery, we can really turbocharge that experience and that professional learning, which is what we're going to do. So I've been very blessed here, because they've listened. They know it's not just a tech strategy. It's an organization direction, and we're in it together, of which the tech is a heart and a part of the way we engage. And I know that's not often. We've all had slight frustrations in our past, I know, with boards and exec and everything else. So I feel very blessed right now to have that backing, and for it to be seen with the exec on core organization decisions.
So it sounds like what you're describing there is an ability to focus in and to try and understand what are the things that you want to do really well over a period of time, and to try and, even in a world where in organizations such as we've worked in, there's constantly new exciting things coming along, but to try and focus and say, no, we want to get this right, we want to do this really well, so as we can benefit from it. And is that something? Has that come easily? Have you just sort of like kind of told them and said, look, here's it's really obvious as a case, we have to do this, focus in and get it done, and it'll be fine? Or has that been a battle to get there?
Oof, it's holding your nerve. I mean, I've been very blessed with my sort of business partner and everything else, but it is holding your nerve. It kind of reminds me, do you remember? I mean, it's such a mother phrase, this, isn't it? When you've got a cold, or when you've been ill and your mum says, look, couple of more days, and then you'll spring back even more better, and turbocharge. Whereas if you go back too soon, you'll elongate the pain and it will take longer to heal. Kind of reminds me of this: when you make those decisions around technology or products or services, or should we really tweak that system, or if we wait so we have a little bit more money and then change it even better, how does that work? How does that serve your purpose? How do you get there? And I think that we're in such a now microwave society mindset, sometimes holding that nerve. And me, and it's been hard at times, right? I'm sure there's pins in me somewhere at times, and I'm like, please don't. We will genuinely get to the end path quicker if we go down this route. Please believe me. And I have to demonstrate that belief, and I have to ask, and other people have to come in with me. It's not easy, Stuart, but we do things so disjointed, we do things so piecemeal. When you look at purpose, what's actually going to move the needle? And sometimes it's pooling things together or waiting or focus and prioritizing.
I think that's really true. When you get lots of different things, I've always thought that if you could have some way of assessing the scale of change, and say, here's the number of different change initiatives going on, the different number of things. How many people is it possible for this to work with? So, for example, if you've only got a team of 10 people in technology and digital and data, how much change can you take on? If, say, you've got a team of 50, how much change can you take on? Or if you've got a team of 100, and if it's more like the sort of size teams that we're used to, then it's going to be really a big challenge. And I'm gonna bring in Mary here, because you've just started at a new organization, and whenever you start in a new organization, that's the moment when you're hit by, here's all the interesting things that people are trying to do. How do we turn this into a roadmap of things we're going to actually start delivering? Have you seen that?
Absolutely. And I think I've joined and they haven't had a CTO for a while. And there's been lots of people coming to me saying, oh, we've been waiting for you because this is what we want to do. And this is what we want to do. And this is what we want to do. Um, and for me, it's really important, like you were saying, Avril, to pause and not try and do everything. And it is about what the capacity of the tech team to do the changes, but it's also about what's the capacity of the organization to take on the change.
Spot
Do they
on.
understand what they want to do? And are they really connected with technology? Because I don't think that any of the projects that I want to do are purely tech projects. I mean, there might be one or two that are kind of service desk, etc. But really, it's about what does the organization want and need to do? How do we connect that back to what we want to achieve for people living with and affected by motor neuron disease at the moment? Um, and then how do we collectively deliver that? So I'm finding myself saying a lot at the moment, this is not a technology project. This is a charity project. This is a business project. And that's, and it's interesting. We've got to go on a bit of a journey there. I think people are kind of, they have to learn to change some of their behaviors and not say, oh, tech, you go do this. It's like, no, stop. We're going to do this together. And then we will have better outcomes. And sometimes you have to be able to tell the story of, in the past, what's worked well when you've done things collectively. I do think it's super exciting, though, that some of the technology is there now. Like you were talking about the platform you want to create, Avril. We were doing something similar in terms of creating a data science environment for all the health information we wanted to work with at the British Heart Foundation, where I worked most recently. The technology is there now, so that's fantastic. But it's just making sure that we're choosing wisely what we want to do with it and not overcommitting and trying to do everything at once.
And I'm just thinking of the organizations we've talked about here, MND, of Royal Pharmaceutical Society, and British Heart Foundation, you Mary. These are all very different organizations with very different aims. And I'm going to now chuck in things like, if you say, well, if you think about the digital experience you try and give in these organizations, and then even you try and throw in all of the opportunities around AI which are coming along now, my God, there's a lot of work. How will a board or an executive leadership team get their heads around managing the risk there, or managing those decisions and trying to get to the right place? And when you're the CTO, how do you do that?
It's what I love about our roles. Sorry, I'll go slightly off piece, Stuart, but actually that's what's so beautiful about working in technology, is trying to stay on your toes and finding new ways of dealing with this risk and emergence. Sorry, slide aside, but yeah, it is that constant. I don't know whether you feel that, Mary.
Absolutely, yeah. It would be boring if we were doing the same thing all the time. So, yeah, learning and seeing what's out there. It's good. I've been really impressed by, like in the British Heart Foundation, the sense of optimism and enthusiasm for AI, tempered with a bit of reality as well. And I'm trying to learn from that to take that positive attitude of let's see what we can do. Let's learn a bit. And be prepared to make some mistakes and being quite open about that. And I think, from very early on in my career, I've learned that if you do something wrong or make a mistake, if you're kind of open and honest about it, then people will respond well to that, and then you can move forward. So yeah, have some energy and enthusiasm. Let's not always talk about what could go wrong, but then be kind of honest about when you do make mistakes.
I think it's like you're saying, it's those guardrails, isn't it? I mean, get your AI
Mhm.
policy up first, boom.
Mhm.
And it's okay to lock it down to start with, and then increase as you learn and grow in those confidence, but I fear what's been really interesting my end is again is because we've got two different mindsets in our organization. One, naturally, because of the lens of what it is a little bit more commercially aware in terms of what is IP. And clearly, you would not put medicines information everywhere. And you've got to think about clinical safety. I'm sure you have that element yourself there, Mary. So you naturally would take more of a caution approach, and you would literally, just do some very small self-contained internal things. Whereas another part of the organization, particularly, those that have not had to deal with the word IP or anything, this is, intellectual property or anything like that. They've not had to in their role. Suddenly, as an organization, everybody needs to be aware. You don't just shove something into ChatGPT because you lost your data. But so suddenly it's actually that's that culture awareness that you were talking about earlier, Mary, and that sort of organizational lens. And it's really that literally leaning into that support for them and creating an environment where, hey, we're gonna do some personalized, talking about digital experience. Actually, that's what we're working with. But you know what? It doesn't have to be that fancy. As we all know, there's a difference between explicit personalization and implicit personalization. So if you want to deliver some digital improvements, which is just based on a few profile requests and ticks and preferences and segmentation, that is cheaper and easier to deliver than, I'm going to go down the implicit personalization. I'm going to have machine learning. I'm going to do this. You don't have to go there for the minute. Slash, do you actually need to go there? Are you big enough to, generate a did you know and what if? And, actually, you just want to find relevant stuff to you because you're looking for that support. Again, what is the beneficiary or the member or the user or the person that's receiving support need? Always comes back to that. And then you find the simplistic route and then supporting the organization in learning and training and how to use these things. But initially, it's that. I don't know about you. I was thinking about this the other day. I'm going to be a little bit controversial. I'm going to remove the trust in the AI piece. I think it's a trust in people because right now I don't have a trust in the use of the way other companies have implemented AI by using it for training their models and by doing stuff. But that's a human decision, not the AI's decision.
Mhm.
And I'm actually not trusting people with the use of AI in the suppliers stuff, in the applications we use and things, because they just seem to think everything's their property. And that I found harder, actually, the trust in other people than the AI. Is there something wrong with me there?
No, not at all. I think so. The trust in the AI, I think, is really interesting because if you go to, I don't know, if you go to Google now and you just type stuff in and Google gives you a response, it gives you a very nice, so you can ask it all sorts of questions, the sort of questions that you might have previously gone to some of the charities we've worked for and gone to their website, gone through, and they might have developed a chat bot. You might be looking through it. Now Google can give you a pretty good response on lots of those things, but you ask yourself, do you have the trust in that
Mhm.
response? And I think actually a lot of there is a lot of trust in those responses. Actually, I'd say, but it's in how have all those decisions got made in the background? And as a technologist, we're always very suspicious of, well, how has that worked? What's the model? And that's why transparency is always really important in AI models to try and understand how has it got there. I'm just going to chip in on something else you said earlier because I'm interested in. You talked a bit about how um, trying to solve larger problems. And one of the things I've noticed is larger charities tend to think that they can often solve the whole problem because they have a lot of scale, whereas smaller entrepreneurial organizations try and work out what's the thing they can really excel in, do that really well, and they know because they don't have the money to do everything. They'll try and do the one thing they do really well. And throughout this podcast, what I've tried to do is I've tried to take a selection of small entrepreneurial organizations and get them to chuck out challenges to the larger charities about how they work. So as I can contrast what a large organization will do against a small entrepreneurial organization. And the reason I'm going through all of this is because I'm really interested in having you on the podcast, Avril, because you've sat in both places really throughout your career, through what you've done with Cancer Central and trying to start that. You're founding that, and that was, you went through that world of being an entrepreneur, but you've also been in the world of larger charities as well. And have you seen that? How have you found that experience of bringing the entrepreneurial mindset to a larger organization?
Such a good question. I challenge myself to do it all the time because exactly your point there, Stuart. You have to focus and you have to prioritize and you really hone in on, why am I here? What is the impact I'm trying to make? And therefore, what's going to drive the most value in my delivery to do that? And I think, and I'm going to apologize to everyone listening, slightly generalize, it is easier for larger charities and organizations to lose that focus because they can do a bit more, as you said, and therefore, you know what, they sometimes over engineer or, so when I sort of go through, I'm like, okay, I challenge myself. Am I over engineering this? What is the value? So what actually should we be spending that development time, the engineering, the data science side, that type of skill sets? I do want to recruit that in versus, you know what, that's light touch, that's off the shelf, that's this, that's that. And that kind of constant challenge has been very useful for me to keep that focus. And I think actually seeing that drive and seeing product grow, and it's a real privilege and pleasure that, our insight and knowledge from Cancer Central is informing the build of Cancer Platform. And you'll be hearing about that soon. And that's a really big moment for us, to join forces globally for this big, cancer platform and charity. But it is about that focus, and they're focusing. And I can see it in my previous few jobs now with Reba and with Royal Pharmaceutical Society. Focus. And different ways of doing things. I'm always a little bit maverick, you can probably tell. I always go things in a different way. I always throw the wild card in. I always look at the blue sky thinking. And if we were to start with a blank page, what would it be? Because historically, a lot of these organizations have got debt, have got legacy. But if you were to start again, what would it look like? And is there a halfway house, how you get there to make that impact? So again, I try and think in that way as well.
I was going to say, I think that's really good, Avril. I think some of it goes back to what we were talking about right at the beginning about how do you make decisions, and the fact that a larger organization is more risk averse sometimes and more concerned about losing reputation or the impact. They have more things to worry about and sometimes become risk averse and less inclined to take a chance in that entrepreneurial way. I've been talking a lot to recently people involved in NHS clinical entrepreneur programs and training and so on. I think that's really exciting, where they're trying to bring together the clinical and the entrepreneurial experience to come up with new initiatives.
The blank sheet approach. So I've tried that so many times in organizations, and I'm a real fan of the, can we go back to a blank sheet? What is it we're trying to do here? When you've got a charity that's been around for 50 years or even 100 years, or some of I don't know how long Royal Pharmaceutical Society has been.
180 odd years we are.
180 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a feeling it was going to be a large number.
It's quite a long one.
But when you've got organizations that have been around for that long, the idea of going to a minimum viable product or something like that, it's really difficult because you've actually ended up in lots of organizations with the maximum viable product. Almost you've built and you've built and you've built and you've built over years and years and years, and then trying to get back to what is it, the core thing that's really going to deliver. And you maybe have got something where I know 80% of the value is just in 10% of what's done, and can you get back to that, and can you really focus in on that value where it is? And I've got another colleague who always talks all about value chain mapping and trying to understand whereabouts is the value in that whole process you've got there, and being able to focus in on that and realize, okay, we do all these loads things, but 90% of it is just this one point. This is where the value lies, and can we really maximize that?
I think what's really interesting there is I think there's two approaches, and you're absolutely right. I've seen an organization where that's the case. Actually, this one is completely different. It's minimum viable product, minimum viable product, minimum viable product, minimum, because there's so much opportunity and things that they can do that actually never go back. So there's a fear now. It's like, I better get everything in because it won't come back and we won't do continuous improvement or continuous investment. So we're trying to change that mindset that it's okay. It just, again, that kind of continual, you can do lots of little things, or as you say, go deep with one piece, and it's trying to find that Goldilocks middle, isn't it, with all these things?
And I think part of the challenge that we have is that there are so many good ideas. So you can't say we're not going to do that because it's a bad idea. There are great ideas that will help people, but how do we choose the right ones to do? And some of it's about where we can see the clear value, and some of it's about, do we have the skills and ability and capacity to do it now? So I'm trying to model my yes and approach. Like, yes, we will do this, and we just need to think about some other factors first.
That's such a lovely piece, isn't it? Yes, and it's easy to forget because you can fast, unfortunately, slide into a yes, but we have to remind ourselves. So thank you, Mary. That's a really, really good point.
I've got one final question, which I'm really interested in, and I remember when I was at Shelter years ago, just when I first started. I remember this is a tech question. I remember talking to some people in the tech team, and we had a bit of a session where we talked all about cloud technologies and if they were going to take off. And I remember there was someone who said, "Oh, I don't think this cloud's going to go anywhere. It's going to be we've got really good on-premise systems, and will the security aspects of cloud will stop it ever taking off?" And as we know, the world actually went in a different direction. And as a CTO, you constantly have to try and assess new technologies, see what's going to land, understand, work your way through the hype. You have to deal with the trustees and the leaders and the executive team, and what you have to deal with the situation when the chief exec comes up to you in the lift and says, "So, Stuart, tell me all about this new tech thing. Is this real? Is this going to actually impact us?" And you have to be able to have a good informed opinion there. I guess I'm interested in your thoughts. So this is putting you on the spot a little bit on what the future is for technology. What are going to be the big things that are going to shake things up in the next, say, 3 to 5 years within charity membership, or organizations like ours? Is it AI? Are there other things? What's going to be the thing that you think we should all be looking out for?
I think for the listeners, sorry, I know you can't see us. We were just laughing and nodding in agreement, weren't we, Mary, to the whole being caught in the lift. What's this? Sorry, it's just laughing at that point.
It's happened to us all. When I said that, I could actually picture the exact scene, and I could feel that moment of panic in my head when it happened.
Oh dear. Do you want to go first, Mary?
Oh, I'm trying to think. I mean, I've talked to quite a few organizations recently, and everybody has been talking about how they bring all their different sources of data together onto some sort of platform or way of just making it easier for their teams to understand the incredible levels of data that they have and make better decisions from it. So I think that's going to be something that will help AI, because AI isn't going to do anything for anyone if our data isn't in good nick, and it will help with the personalization and the better experience for those who are interacting with us if our data is in good nick. So, and we know how to use it as well. So for me, I think that's a theme. It's probably been a theme for the last 25 years I've been in the sector as well.
But we will do it. We'll get there.
We will do it, but But do you know, so I'll challenge slightly on that one. So
Mhm.
um, I was at a meeting recently, and a senior leader from a big tech firm said to me, they said, one of the things you might want to think about is actually hanging on to all of that bad data you've got knocking around in your organization, because in the coming 12, 18 months, AI will be able to do all sorts of things and tell you all sorts of interesting stories about your organization. And whilst you might have thought, it's data that we can't really do much with, it's maybe the data that you can actually use to actually identify all sorts of things about your organization, trends of what the beneficiaries of experience, trends of what supporters have seen, and that AI might be able to unravel it. And it was the first time I'd really heard someone proposing that as a thought, and I thought that runs counter to a lot of what we've been thinking, especially with things like GDPR, where we've been like, let's try and persuade people to stop retaining 20 years worth of data that has no value anymore.
I wasn't saying get rid of data. I mean, I don't know if you've seen my email inbox. I hope not, but it's very, very, very big, full of lots of information going back a long time. It's not, yeah, I get that. Don't get rid of stuff willy-nilly, but if it's not usable, if people can't find it, what good is it to anyone? So, that great nirvana when AI will come in and assess everything and tell us, oh, we've read all your data and this is what you're going to know. Yeah, that will be great. But, in the next 2 to 3 years, how will my teams and my colleagues be able to do their jobs in an easier way, less frustrated by, day-to-day data challenges? For that, we need to kind of tidy up our data, and make sure we're treating it with respect and it's in the right place. So yeah, I'm not
I,
saying chuck it all out, but I think we can make it easier to access and help people to use it.
Does anyone remember those Google boxes which used to exist years ago? And they sounded like they were going to be, like you just said, Nirvana. It was like a physical box you plug somewhere in your server room, and the idea was it could search the whole of your organization in the same way as Google searched the internet, and you'd just be able to go to it and tell me this about the organization, tell me that about the organization. And I remember it seemed like an impossible dream, and that was about, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, and it was an impossible dream.
But
I
very forward
remember,
thinking for its time.
yeah, very forward thinking for its time. Unfortunately, it didn't really. It was just a box in the server room which gathered dust, as I remember it. Um, what about you, Avril? Have you got any thoughts on the future and what we should be looking forward to?
Yeah, and I think, just very quickly, I think the additional lens there is the operational cost to housing the data and keeping the
Mhm.
data, maintaining the data. There's a huge bit there. But anyway, I think, and you talk about the real immediate, I think it's around admin side of things. So I was talking to a colleague from a trusted partner, actually, funny enough, earlier today. Funny enough, talking about coming on this podcast, we're having a good old chinwag about AI and bits and pieces. And he was basically saying to me, wow, um, I saw this piece where it basically took all these requirements, turned it into the use case, epics, blah, blah, blah. It means you don't need to do your ceremonies in time. It means you can shrink down your developer team, means it can act as reminders and points and things like that. Now, sure, it needs to be finessed. But that concept that actually, it's not just translating your minutes from the meeting is actually about, organizing your workflow and the best way to deliver the project timeline or, when you're talking traditional projects versus some of the agile and the and those sort of things there and appreciate they're definitely not a charity, but I was reading something only a couple of days ago about the CIO at Pets at Home, and he was expecting a 7-figure saving from the technology in the next 12 months using like an agent AI. And I thought that's going to be really interesting because those early adopters, those organizations that can kind of like push the boundaries in that more administrative process place. I've run our words now, but you know what I mean. I think that's where it's going to test even. I know it's going to challenge my mindset in terms of when we talk about people, process, technology. The process is going to be knocked way out, and how that AI and that admin side of things can support in that internal bit to allow us to do that value add side of things. I think that's the lens that I've got a little bit of an interest in, and want to continuously improve and see where we can adopt. Certainly, large and small charities, I think, is going to be really good and help us be a bit more streamlined so we can be more effective. Because at the end of the day, what are we here for? We're here for that support, our beneficiaries, donors, members. I know we've all got different languages, but the customers and things, that's what we're here for at the end of the day. So any speeding up, swiftness, betterness, anyness of that, I think, is going to be the next couple of years.
Wow, and I think I'm in agreement on the admin side of things. I feel that people like Microsoft, they're trying to get out there that if you can use their technology really well, there's some really great efficiency gains you can get. But it's about the adoption. It's like the argument they made back with SharePoint 10, 15 years ago. If you can use SharePoint really well, then there's all sorts of gains you can make. But it was really hard to use SharePoint really well. Organizations
it's the really well bit, but
yeah. Organizations really struggled with that. I thought a lot about it myself, and I thought similar to what you were saying there, Avril. If we can get to the stage where we can train everyone in an entire organization to do their job, but do it with an AI enhanced version, so they're kind of like each person in our organization becomes two people almost. It's themselves and their AI assistant, whether it's about it's an admin level and it's about taking the minutes, which is the obvious example, which works really well now, and it's summarizing those minutes, or whether they're a strategy professional, or perhaps there's someone that works in the fundraising team working with high value donors, and they can work out how they can get that AI assistant, which will help them do their job more effectively. And if they can make themselves seamlessly, they can sell themselves as the the person in the major in the mass events team who also has an AI assistant so they're 50% more productive than they would be otherwise. If you can unleash that within your organization, that every single member of staff becomes 50% more productive because it's them plus their AI assistant. Wow, that's like that's to your 7-figure savings type sum, because it means that you can then really you can double what you can really scale what you can do as an organization.
So Stuart, the key question is, if each of us have got an AI assistant, what's yours called?
Wow. We could leave a long pause now, which I'll edit out, and then we'll just come straight in with an amazing answer.
That's fascinating, because is it a person or is it a robot? What are you seeing? Are you seeing Wall-E, or are you seeing like a little version of yourself? Oh my God.
Oh my God. So you're listening. Unfortunately, we don't yet have video on this podcast, but Avril is showing us a
Wall-E.
Wall-E toy from the movie.
It's my favorite.
As the little robot from a long time back with very cute eyes.
It's next to my monitor, so when I'm having a moment, I look at something soft and cuddly, and it's okay. It's really sad.
Just to complete the sort of not designed for podcasts at all, I'll hold up my funny little thing, which my daughter made me.
It's beautiful.
And
I love it.
It's something to do with penguins, I think it was, or something like that. But it got squashed in a suitcase at some point, which is why it's slightly flattened. This is completely not. I'll have to put some photos. Avril, you might have to send us a photo of you and you and Wally for the promo materials for the podcast, saying as I'll have a photo of my little penguins on an island there or something like that. Anyway, that's fantastic, because I completely managed to dodge the question about what would my AI assistant be called.
There you go.
But thank you very much. It's been really great chatting to you both, and this is why I love doing these podcasts, because you get to chat to really interesting people doing amazing things. Avril, I think you're nominated for a Woman in Tech Award, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I just can't believe it. I mean, just to even be shortlisted in the top 50 for Computer Weekly's most influential women in tech is beyond an honour. There's seriously heroes on the long list and the short list, and I'm very happy being number 50. I mean, I don't know when the announcement is or what's going to happen, but I am just over the moon, and thank you. Gosh, nothing's achieved alone, right? We all say that. It's all teamwork and hand on heart. There's nothing I would have done would have been, it's collective, isn't it?
It is collective, but I also feel privileged to have talked to a patron and also to someone nominated.
I'm not used to that yet.
prestigious award. So anyway, it's been really great chatting to you, Avril, today. And Mary, I'm so happy to have had you back on as my AI co-pilot on this
I'm very excited. We've got Mary. Woo!
this podcast.
Thanks,
Woo!
Mary.
There you go.
Thank
Anyway,
you.
thank you very much, Avril and Mary. It's been great chatting to you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Stuart. And vote for Avril. Yay.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks. Bye.